Welcome to A Shot Between the Reels. It's two guys having a frank discussion about movies. My name's Dan, and over here is Brendan. Welcome, Brendan. It's good to see your face again.
Always lovely.
Always lovely. We used to live in the same town, but now we don't. So we have to make the most of this digital format, don't we?
It's fine.
It's fine. It is fun. And so is your face.
Kind words.
So tonight we're going to be reviewing a film, or today, in today's episode. But before we get into the film for today, we're going to get into some movie news. Movie news, Brendan. What caught your eye in the movie world recently, Brendan?
So the more recent thing that I heard about, which is interesting, a lot of talk about the Snyder Cut of...
#release the Snyder Cut. It's been building, hasn't it?
As you may be well aware, a lot of people have spoken about it for a long time. Effectively, he never made this film. So he made part of it and it was finished, effectively. But then the Snyder Cut, I imagine, requires a lot of special effects, and this is why it's such an expensive ordeal and why we were told we would probably never see it.
I've read different things.
I don't know. I mean, what have you read?
So the other day I read something about it costing about 30 million, which doesn't sounds like a lot of money, because it is $30 million is a lot of money, but in movie numbers, that's not really. That's a drop in the ocean, really.
Yeah, but for a film that was basically already finished, let's not forget.
It needed reshoots, but you got to remember as well. It was meant to be two films, so
was it actually?
Yeah, so that when it comes out, the Snyder Cut, it's either going to be two films, or it's going to be 1 4-hour marathon. Or they're even talking about releasing it in 6 episodes.
Oh
wow! So yeah, but all the actors were on board apparently.
I really hope it's this sort of 5-hour behemoth or something they just release on HBO. I mean, that's awesome. Where they're talking about releasing it, right? HBO Max.
HBO Max, yeah. And I don't know what that means for us in the UK. What that means?
Forgotten about.
Hopefully it will be readily accessible. I hope it comes out in the cinema as well. That'll be good fun.
I don't think so. I think
if it can be in that format, if it's too long, then
I don't have maybe the most positive connotations of the original, but I'd be interested to see what his version was, because I think the version that we ended up seeing was probably fairly different in tone from...
Yeah, I mean, what I read was that basically these films were ready, more or less, just needed a bit more finishing off. And they brought Joss Whedon in all ready to finish it, and then he basically changed it quite a lot. So some characters got cut out completely, some drastically cut down. So there's every chance we'll see Green Lantern, the Atom, and Darkseid is meant to be in it properly.
Wow.
So
the tone was different. Like they added more jokes, and they put in.
Yeah, they added more jokes.
I heard something about like the color grading was different as well. It was made to look more
happy.
Maybe in slight though, it's our answer kind of for the fact that we have Avengers, and Avengers is as popular as it has been. They wanted to do the same, didn't they? But
yeah,
I don't
know. My opinion of that the film that did actually come out wasn't great. Some of the CGI is really, really shoddy. And that's just the CGI. Storytelling is a bit strange and a bit weak. And yeah, I mean, it's just very much a poor man's MCU, isn't it? Really, even the worst films in the Marvel universe
I know.
will shatter that. So,
But it's
which is
I
a
think
shame.
it is a shame because I think there's a lot of very interesting characters to explore in terms of what DC have. It's just you wonder how they could have done what they've done to it. But maybe I think it might be in part just for the fact that they were trying to emulate too many things at the same time. They want the success of Marvel, but they don't have the same characters of Marvel. They want.
No.
I think they wanted to do a bit of Nolan's Batman, but Nolan's Batman doesn't fit into a massive cinematic universe either.
It's a strange one, isn't it? Really, I wonder what effect it will have because obviously, it kind of the failure of Justice League kind of canned Ben Affleck's Batman film, and that's been changed, and it's now this Robert Pattinson one, which looks really interesting. To be fair, but they've just gone on this sort of completely different route. They're changing Suicide Squad, but they're keeping Wonder Woman. It's just like, I mean, Aquaman was enjoyable, but just like, how does this fit in?
Yeah,
it just seems very muddled over at DC. So we'll see. We'll see if this kind of somehow brings back something that or has an effect on what films they do choose.
I mean, people have loved the Snyder Cut. The Snyder stuff they've really enjoyed. Some people have really loved it. Some people, myself probably included in that list, are people that really don't like them.
Yeah,
I think he's an acquired taste, to be sure.
Yeah, I mean, Watchmen is great.
Yeah.
So who knows? He's got it in him. But yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. His filmography. Shall we think about a few other bits of movie news? I'll throw these at you, Brendan.
Go for it.
This one I briefly mentioned earlier, and you hadn't heard anything. So this is a fresh one. So Tom Cruise is trying to film an entire movie in space. So to actually go into space.
It's very Tom Cruise news.
It is, isn't it? I mean, like, what else does he need to do? He's got this checklist of things that no one's done or no one would think to do.
Please just tell me it's a film full of stunts. I just want Mission Impossible stunts in space.
Yeah, I mean, I've just read that Doug Liman has signed on to do this. But obviously, they're connected on Edge of Tomorrow. So it's exciting. There's action in that.
That's exciting.
What do you think?
I mean, I personally have really enjoyed a lot of Tom Cruise projects that have kind of come out. So I'm really interested by something like that, especially because Edge of Tomorrow was great.
I'm gonna pause, Brendan. Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
Pausing. Your thoughts, Brendan?
So I am quite a fan of Tom Cruise. I think when it comes to films, he often picks very carefully his projects. And the more recent ones, such as Edge of Tomorrow, like you mentioned, I really enjoyed. I think it's very interesting. He clearly has a love for science fiction, and you can often tell the project, if anything, I think it's often something that sticks in my mind, which is good. So it definitely makes me interested for what he potentially could bring up. I don't know. I have no idea what it could be. I always am quite excited for when they do a new Mission Impossible film. I feel like he's going to be doing those for a long time to come. I imagine as long as he feels like he can. But
indeed, I mean, I did read something about James Cameron talking to Tom Cruise ages ago.
Wow.
And them sort of thinking about doing this movie in space, and having this conversation about, okay, if you're going to do that, Tom, you're going to have to train to be an engineer so you can go in space. And it's just like, yeah, I'll do it. It's just like, what? He is absolutely mad, Tom Cruise, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So, another bit of movie news, very quick reaction.
Go on.
They are doing a Labyrinth sequel directed by
Yes.
Scott
So I did hear about
Derrickson.
this. I
Yeah,
did see briefly on Twitter a bit of news about this. I'm conflicted because I do think the Jim Henson Company have it in the bag when it comes to puppeteering. There's no one else that can match them, right? So they would do a good job, and they recently did
yeah,
the Dark Crystal prequel, which was very good on Netflix, and I have every confidence of it. I think
yeah,
it's interesting to do a sequel like that so many years after the first, and also with effectively, you know, Bowie not being here,
yeah.
it just makes it interesting. I don't know how the film could really have the same impact with him not around, not being here.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed Duncan Jones on his son on Twitter was tweeting about it in a positive way. It seemed like he was like, "I'm going to be that goblin or whatever in the background again." So it seems to almost have his blessing, which is cool. Cool, I guess. And I like Scott Derrickson. I love Doctor Strange, and and I think Sinister's a really good horror film. So yeah, we'll see. We'll watch this space.
Yeah, they could do fantastic things with it. I have every faith that they would do something great. And they could very much depart from the original and just do their own thing. And that's probably for the best. It would be very hard to match what the original brings. Means so much to so many people. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Okay. Shall we get into our movie tonight then, or
Let's
today,
do it.
for our episode?
Yeah.
So, Brendan, tell us, what is today's film?
The film that we watched was Extraction, and it's on Netflix. And I believe the director is Sam Hargrave. Is
Something
that?
like that. Yeah, it's his first film, wasn't it? Debut directing.
Yes,
Um,
correct. Yep.
Sam Hargrave.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, have you looked up who Sam Hargrave is?
So if I'm correct, I
Yeah.
think being that this was his directional debut, he is the stuntman for Captain America. Is that right?
Yeah, that is what I read too, which is
Yeah.
pretty just amazing, isn't it?
It's
To go from
really,
that,
really cool.
obviously connected well with the Russos, and who are producing and writing um, on this film. They got the rights for the graphic novel,
Yeah.
to adapt it some time ago. I think I found an interview from 2015, so it's been in the works for a little while, as these films often are.
Yep.
So yes, shall we go for a star rating?
Yeah, let's do it.
Brendan, tell me what I don't know what you gave this one today. So our last episode, I knew you were going to give. So this is going to be interesting.
So,
Brendan, tell us what you gave Extraction out of 5 stars.
I gave this a 3-star rating.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I gave Extraction also 3 stars.
Oh,
There we
interesting.
go. How interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Brendan, just a few thoughts opening up why you kind of gave it 3 stars before we get too far into the film's discussion.
I think it's a very decent action film. It ticks a lot of boxes, got a lot going on visually that makes it very outstanding. So you could definitely tell there was a lot of heart and passion that went into this film. But for me, it drops a chunk of points in other areas. It doesn't have a terribly original or fun story. The dialogue is relatively lacking because they're concentrating more on action. So those are a few things that probably would have marked it down for me. How about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's some imbalance going on, isn't there? I think action sequences are brilliant.
Yeah.
And there's a few kind of more intimate moments which are really good as well, actually. But I think, there's some weak points, there's some weak moments, which is a shame. And it makes it very. I mean, it's very watchable. But it's not going to be an action classic, which is a shame. But they leave it open at the end for potential for there to be more.
Yes.
And would I watch another one? Probably. It probably works better on Netflix.
Yes.
I probably wouldn't pay money to go and see it at the cinema to see another one. But yeah. So Brandon, let's think about a bit more about the positives. Let's start with the positives before we get sort of too negative.
I mean, it has that supposed one take shot, doesn't it? They say is about 11, just over 11 and a half minutes or something.
Yeah.
Which is effectively, it's kind of a one take, except it's very cleverly edited shots together to make it look like one massive long take.
That's how they do it.
Yeah.
It's not unusual, is it?
It looks really good. I have to say, that action you cannot fault at all in that film. Every scene kind of has you very gripped. I think the way that the camera moves as the fight is kind of happening, and you can really see the technical brilliance. They want to show off how good everything looks. It's not loads of crazy shaky cam. They kind of steady the camera and let you see what is happening. It's not maybe as steady as, say, a more, I don't know, something where they were showing martial arts, for instance, where someone really cares about it. They often pull the camera right out so you can see everything. Yeah. Those fighters know what they're doing, whereas this is obviously, it's edited in such a way that it feels very American, I guess you would say. But then they really do a good job of technically, I suppose you might compare it more closely to something like John Wick. It feels, the gunplay feels very John Wick. The way that
I agree. I had that same thought during those actions, like the fight, hand-to-hand combat stuff, and the sort of close quarters gun action, where they're kind of going through the building, trying to sort of, and there's people coming out from behind doors all the time. Very much thinking that they're trying to sort of emulate what is so good in John Wick. And I kind of felt they didn't quite get to the levels of John Wick. But still great, still good. I think John Wick probably is the at the moment what you would say is the top level kind of action choreography, I guess.
And John Wick's an interesting one, right? Because I think it's directed by someone. Again, I think it might be a stuntman again, potentially, but it's someone that effectively understands how action should look on screen. They know what will catch your attention, and they totally get it here because it feels right. Yes, it doesn't. I agree with you. It doesn't reach the heavy heights of John Wick because, shall we say, that's like the gold standard of what an action film is now. I think there's so many, and I did get a few of those moments, I have to admit, where we first see Chris Hemsworth facing off with those guys in the room after they pull the gun on him, and then he goes and he takes them out. But the way that he does it, and there were so many moments where I was like, like moments where it just doesn't move, and you think, oh man, that looks bad. It looks real, and it looks bad.
But, I mean, obviously we got to talk about Tyler Rake, Chris Hemsworth, using a rake to kill someone, and it's pretty brutal as well. That's one of those ones where you're like, oh mate.
I mean, I was going to say to you about that, but interestingly, I read that at one point they were in talks with Arnold Schwarzenegger of being in this film, which made me feel, when I saw him do the rake kill, I thought that is absolutely an Arnold Schwarzenegger thing right there.
Yeah, he probably, in those just preliminary discussions, was just like, I need to kill someone with a rake. and like that's how it's got in there, Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it. So those moments, especially the moments I think where the two effective leads face off against each other,
Yeah.
feel very. It almost was a bit kind of Terminator, I think, where it's
Yeah.
like the relentless chase between the two. But
Yeah, because you have this guy, and I've got to be honest, I did struggle to keep up with some of these characters. That was one of my bugbears. But the guy who is listed on IMDb is called Sarju, I think his name.
yeah,
Who was trying to get back the kid for his boss.
yeah,
And I think he's really good in this. Actually, I think he's one of
right,
the better kind of characters.
yeah,
But yeah, they're kind of face off. You kind of want more of it. And it works really well that in the end they kind of team up. I think that was kind of cool.
I
Although,
like that. Yeah,
yeah, I think there are moments where you're kind of like, how do we get to this point? Why are they on the same team? There were a few moments of like, who's this? And
yes,
why
yeah.
is this happening now? Um, which is a bit frustrating.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, how about Mr. Hemsworth? His performance. What do you think?
I think that he's probably doing the best with what he's got. He does always bring something to a role. He's a very
Hmm.
kind of a character that you can always quite attach to because I don't know, he just seems likable, doesn't he? For the most part, and I think it's not doing him any favors really that no character really seems like there's a whole lot of thought built into them. So
No.
they don't really have much of an introduction in the most case. Almost any character, it
Yeah.
seems like it's all just a vehicle that's driving them forward to get to the next action set piece. And I think
Yeah.
that's why it's marked in my mind where it is, because yes, it delivers on those moments, but those moments in reality aren't going to mean much if you don't really feel anything for the character. You
Yeah.
don't know you have kind of any
Yeah.
connection.
Quite. I think with Chris Hemsworth's character, with Tyler Rake, he was kind of the only character that had any real depth,
Yeah,
other than the kid. The kid kind of had some,
yeah,
but essentially it's just daddy issues. Um, whereas Chris Hemsworth has this battle between when you find out, he essentially abandoned his son
yes,
and his wife, and he loses his son, and then he's kind of has this boy in front of him who, if he abandons, he's giving him a death sentence. So there's that kind of reflective thing going on in the story, and
yes.
he's got a choice to make: is he going to let the same thing happen?
Mm.
And he has to face up to that. So that's one thing I really liked, and I think Chris Hemsworth did that well.
Yeah,
And I think the scene where he kind of has to talk about that was good with the boy. I think that the quote that the boy gives him about
yes, yeah. It's a famous poem, isn't it?
not drown. You don't drown by falling in the river, but by staying submerged in it. I think kind of, yeah. I mean, it was a little hammy for me, but that kind of idea of being submerged was kind of a theme that does come out in the film. Actually, when I stopped and thought about it, actually, yeah, he kind of clearly jumps into the river at the start, and he kind of stays down there, which is kind of obviously a nod to where that quote comes in
Absolutely,
later.
yeah.
But there's an element that actually, when he goes into that city to get the boy and to do the extraction, he's submerging himself, and there's an element that he's trying to escape the
Yes.
pain, maybe by actually going deeper into something else. And actually, it's in that scenario that he has to find his way out and deal with the pain. So when I reflected on it, I actually thought, there's a bit more going on in this story than just the surface level action.
Yeah, I think so.
But that being said, I think you're entirely right. The other characters, there's no depth.
No,
really, and which is the part of the issue, I think. But
They
yeah,
could have just done some maybe slightly more interesting things, right? Lingered on some of the characters a little bit longer.
mm,
Even sometimes some of the best storytelling that is happening in a film can be put there without them even really saying anything. They don't
yeah,
have to. They can tell a picture. They can tell the story through the pictures effectively, so they can
mm,
have the characters say nothing, but a lot is said through the performance.
yeah. It's
So
a
I think,
bit like with the kid with the fingers being chopped off, and I was like, who is this random like bad guy come
yeah.
from? Like, where did he come from? Like, maybe I missed it. I don't know.
Well, they
Uh,
show a picture of him in the earlier part of the film.
yeah,
That's
maybe I
really
just
interesting.
blinked at that moment.
Yeah, yeah.
I did. I have to say, I found the start a little clunky,
Mm,
um, but I persevered.
yeah. I mean, well, because it's swapping to several different characters, you're
And languages as well,
that
which
was
is a
a
bit tricky, I have
yeah,
to say, because they were doing this mixture of like dropping in the foreign language, and then they'd start speaking in English, and then go back and forth, which is how was probably more genuine actually, but quite hard to follow.
yeah, yeah.
I found it very distracting. Um, but yeah,
But I think he does, yeah. Especially, I agree that I think Chris Hemsworth is he's a good actor. So you do get those moments where he's emoting, and I think you're entirely kind of believing in his character. And I think when he's going through all of the missions, whether it be in an action scene or whether it be in kind of his heart to heart moments, I think he's believable as a person
mm,
that is there. It's just a shame that I suppose the same level isn't brought on the other characters, and so we feel
yeah,
a kind of connection to everyone effectively in the story. It feels
yeah,
very quick that we see Shaju, that guy. He goes from being at home with his family to his family's threatened. He immediately goes out there, and then we see him as like a
yeah,
one track kind of
yeah,
mind. Here I'm going to do this thing, and I'm not seeing anything else. And maybe that's realistic of someone that would be on a job. They detach entirely, but
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe I wanted to see a little bit more of certain characters, but
yeah. No, I thought. But this is something interesting as well. Actually, apparently in the original graphic novel, it wasn't a boy; it was a girl. It was a daughter. So
yeah.
I thought it was an interesting that they would change that. I'm not quite sure whether
think
whether if it was a girl, if it was any different. To be honest,
it possibly makes sense why they would make that change. I think maybe because at the state maybe Hollywood feels it's into, they really need to show another kind of here's a man coming to rescue a woman. I did think to
maybe,
myself, I think I made a note when I was writing up everything saying if this film had come out in the 90s, I think it would have blown people's minds. They would have loved it. Whereas as it currently sits, it's
yeah,
relatively mediocre, and it's sad. Maybe it's just coming at the wrong time. I did
yeah,
hear a lot of criticism online of people saying it's a white savior film, which you can get a sense of. I think maybe that's people being unfair and maybe a little too overjudgy, but
yeah. I
because
don't
he's
know.
actually the one white man,
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have that. I think when you've got a male lead who's going to be the action star,
yeah,
that is white. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I think it's going to be that comment, isn't it?
yeah, very,
Especially when you're going into a foreign place. And
yeah,
interestingly, as well, the original graphic novel was set in South America, so they've changed the location as well. I imagine that was just because it was an easier location. Maybe I don't know. Um,
Apparently, there is also super strict gun laws, which
oh
means
yeah,
they had to film the entire thing with rubber guns and then use special effects.
yeah, I saw that too.
When I
Crazy.
when I read that and then I saw everything in it, I just thought that is crazy. That is some undertaking.
Yeah,
That's
no, it's just a lot of work.
it's
Did you see about the director as well, Sam Hargrave, and the car chase? there's a sequence where apparently he got the camera himself and strapped himself to the front of one of the cars and filmed the sequence himself, having been strapped to the front of a car, which is just bonkers. So there must be a clip online of that.
I mean, dedication to the craft. All props to him, really, because I think it does pay off for those scenes. They really feel like your heart is pumping while you're watching, or I certainly felt like that. But
no, definitely. Last, very final shot. Is that Tyler Rake? Is that someone else? Are we going to get more of these films? What do you think?
I think that's a very smart shot in my mind, because it leaves it entirely open to interpretation, which is always a good thing when we're talking about art. I think it leaves it in the person's hands. Some people hate that. I think a lot of people hate when they're given choice. Some people prefer to have something definitive. I mean, look at how split people are on the end of Inception. People really don't like it, or they
people are still talking about it as well. It still comes up, doesn't it?
Exactly. And so it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but personally, I think it's great because it says if we get a sequel, he's alive, and he does survive a whole lot of crazy odds in that film, so it could be realistic.
Hey, we could also get a prequel though.
Absolutely, and I think that would be interesting as well. See what other exploits the character might have been on, put it in a different setting. But then I do also like the idea that the boy is effectively, he's been kind of embroiled in this journey that he's been on, and he's so enamored by Tyler Rake's character that he sees him even kind of in his waking dreams, that he's waking up coming out of the pool, and then it also ties it back to the beginning of the film, and there's all that nicety in it. So I think it's whichever way you want to perceive it. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think that like I said earlier, I'd be happy to watch another one. It would be, a bit of Hollywood magic, wouldn't it, that he survives. So yeah, and I think actually, if the kid is in the next film somehow, I would be interested in seeing that kind of develop.
Yeah,
because there's an element that he's looking for a father figure, and so maybe that would be an interesting dynamic. I don't know. I might be wrong. Knowing Hollywood, they would just start like fresh. Probably it's a completely new story. Yeah. I did want to ask you one other thing.
Go on.
About a little sort of cameo role that just for me just came out of nowhere.
Yes. Yeah.
David Harbour, who obviously Stranger Things is coming up in the new Marvel film for Black Widow. He's just a bit of a legend, isn't he?
Yeah.
But it was a little jarring for me seeing him turn up. I was like, oh, David Harbour's in it. And then you're like, then you stop and think, it's the bit where he leaves them.
Yeah.
He gets them set up, you go get yourself set up. I'm just going to pop out. And you think, this ain't going to end well, is it? So what did you think?
I would agree that I was not expecting it. And I thought, this is an odd choice that they would go with David Harbour. I mean, I do really like him as an actor, and I think it's good. It seems very telling that they would probably have him in this project, but at the same time, maybe it kind of worked. I think he's still good. He did a good performance. I don't know necessarily that I would believe they would be these old wartime buddies necessarily, but
no, quite. I think there's an element as well. Like, if you're going to use David Harbour, let's use him. They clearly had him for like a day or 2 days.
Yeah,
because there just wasn't much there.
Yeah,
so that was a bit of a shame.
Yeah, because he's there for such a short period of time, and then they just they just had their fun with him and then get rid of him. Whereas they could have used him in maybe a slightly more pivotal scene, I guess.
Yeah,
Effectively.
or have him like in an early scene, and then bring him back.
Yeah,
I don't know.
show the connection more, but apparently this film is less concerned
Yeah.
with that, perhaps.
And to be fair, it might actually be that's how the graphic novel kind of works.
Sure.
And there's an element that graphic novels are different from films.
Yes.
The way they are paced, it will be different. The depth might be different. Who knows? And actually adapting it into a film, maybe we're kind of not giving the writers enough credit in there trying to adapt it. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah, it's possible. You don't really know the full story, and I haven't read the source material, so I can't comment on it. So.
Yeah. I looked it up on Amazon, and there was a hardback copy of it for second hand, which was listed at £1,000.
Whoa!
So I'm guessing that was like a first edition or something at least, and signed maybe. I don't know, but yeah. So I think we're ready for some final thoughts on Extraction.
Yes. Brandon,
tell me what your final thoughts, your 3-star rating thoughts.
So those my 3-star rating thoughts are that there's a few different areas ultimately for me where it suffers. I think that there's not enough tension, as we said already, that really goes into the plot behind everything. I feel it drives itself forward at almost breakneck speed to get to the bits that they believe people are most interested in, that people want to watch. Its action scenes are really well done, and you can tell there's a lot of care and attention that's gone into making it stand out and pop. I mean, and it does work in those areas, but for me, it doesn't quite do enough to kind of get you fully on board with everything. I'm not as invested in the characters. I'm not as invested in where the story is really going. I'm just getting through the film. It's a film that I could probably watch again, but I don't know how many times I would keep coming back to something like this.
Yeah. I think I would agree. I'm not going to be rushing back to watch Extraction anytime soon, but it's the sort of thing maybe if someone was going to watch it and I was there, I'd watch some of it and hope that it was on a good bit. So, yeah, I mean, I think the action sequences are really good. I was just thinking, actually, that final sort of sequence on the bridge is the tension is great.
Yeah.
The action is great.
Yeah.
So you can't fault it too much, really, in that sense. But there are some sort of a lack of depth in places with the characters, and kind of a bit of like, well, what's going on now? How did we get to this bit? Because we're just going along quite quick on certain bits. But it feels like they're cutting corners at moments. That being said, I think there is an emotional level to it, which I was surprised by how good it was for me. And that really helped for me to get to that final sort of sequence, and it resolved kind of that redemption story quite well, actually. And I think Chris Hemsworth does a good job, but it's not going to be one that I'm desperately watching anytime soon again. I've got other films to watch. Yes. But I am excited to see what other stuff the Russos are going to bring. Obviously, they weren't directing this one, but they're involved. And I know that they've got their own sort of production company going on now. And that's going to be interesting to see what they produce and they direct. And yes, so 3 stars from me as well. So we'll be back next week. This was episode 2, talking about Extraction. It's always lovely to see you, Brendan.
Always a pleasure, Dan.
And we will have the pleasure of your company once again, viewers, next week with another film, which we will announce sometime in the near future on our social media accounts. So connect with us on Instagram, on Twitter, click subscribe on YouTube to watch more of us having a frank discussion about movies. And we'll be back soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.